It started like every other quiet morning in Maple Creek Estates, a gated community so quiet you could hear sprinklers whisper across manicured lawns. But I could feel her watching me again. From across the street, Karen Davenport, chairwoman of the HOA and self-proclaimed guardian of community standards, was standing behind her lace curtain, phone in hand, glaring like a hawk spotting prey. All I was doing was tightening a bolt under the hood of my 1969 Lincoln Continental, a car I'd bought as a father-son project. But to Karen, anything that wasn't a white picket fence or an overpriced garden gnome was suspicious. Every clang of a wrench made her flinch. Every garage door open felt like an alarm to her precious sense of control. When I stepped out to stretch, she ducked, then immediately raised her phone, pretending to take landscape pictures, but her camera was pointed directly at me. The tension simmered. She whispered into her phone, pacing the sidewalk. Her eyes locked onto me with that smug little smirk she always wore when she thought she was about to win. Karen, into phone. Yes, officer, it's him again. He's been in and out of that garage all week. It's suspicious. I froze mid-step. Was she seriously calling the cops because I was fixing my own car? I heard the faint echo of police sirens approaching from the distance. 15 minutes later, the tranquility of the cul-de-sac shattered. A patrol cruiser rolled in, red and blue lights slicing across the peaceful street like a warning. Garage doors lifted, blinds fluttered. Every neighbor suddenly found a reason to check their mail. Karen strutted out of her house in full HOA glory, pink slippers, floral robe, clipboard in hand, walking like a woman about to deliver justice. The two officers stepped out. One young, one older, both already wary of the tone in Karen's voice. Karen pointing, There! That's the man I told you about. He's been doing something illegal in that garage. I stood up, wiping my hands on a rag, calm but tired. Me, officers, I'm just restoring a classic Lincoln Continental. My registration's current, my paperwork's clean. Nothing illegal here. The older cop gave me a nod, clearly seeing through Karen's drama, but still following protocol. Officer, sir, mind if we take a quick look around? Just for the report. Me. Sure, nothing to hide. They stepped closer, when suddenly, a metallic clang came from inside the garage, followed by a low voice saying, Hand me that socket wrench. Karen gasped dramatically. See? I told you there's someone else in there. The officers froze. One of them reached for his holster as I slowly walked toward the garage door and hit the switch to open it. The door creaked open, revealing shadows moving behind my car. Out stepped a man, gray-haired, calm, dressed in work overalls, holding a wrench. He looked completely ordinary, but the way he carried himself, quiet, confident, immediately shifted the air. Karen jabbed a finger toward him, nearly shrieking. Karen, that's him! That's the drifter I told you about! He's been sneaking in at night! The man didn't even flinch. He just looked at her, then at the officers and said in a measured tone, Ma'am, I'm here by appointment. The younger cop frowned. Appointment with who? He nodded toward me. With him. We're restoring this Lincoln for a charity auction next week. Karen laughed, that condescending nasal laugh that sounded like she'd been waiting for a punchline. A charity auction, please? You expect us to believe that? The man calmly pulled a badge-sized leather case from his pocket and opened it. Man, I'm the governor's chief of staff. This project's part of the state veterans fundraiser. Silence. The color drained from Karen's face. The older officer blinked twice, recognizing the seal on the badge. Officer. Sir, you're serious? Man nodding. Completely. Karen stepped back, mouth opening, but no words coming out. The man glanced at her and said quietly, And you might want to be polite tomorrow. The governor's coming here in person. The street went dead silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Karen blinked, her voice breaking slightly. Wait! The governor? Why would he come here? The chief of staff smiled faintly. Because this garage is part of the event. The car will be unveiled here. It's a private project, on private property. The younger cop adjusted his hat, clearly realizing how deep Karen had just stepped into embarrassment. The older one just muttered under his breath, "Well, this is a first." Karen's composure shattered. Her hands fluttered like she was trying to rearrange her pride mid-air. I was just concerned for community safety, of course. You never told the HOA about this, and me, firmly. The HOA doesn't own my garage. And next time, before you call the cops, try asking a question first. Her eyes narrowed, not in shame, but in defiance. The type of look that said, "This isn't over." Karen's phone buzzed. She read a text, her expression darkening. She whispered, "Then maybe I'll have to make sure tomorrow never happens." That night, the neighborhood was quiet, but not peaceful. Karen's house still glowed long after every porch light had gone dark. Through her bay window, I could see silhouettes, 3 of them, pacing, whispering. The HOA's core committee, or as I'd come to call them, her posse of paranoia. Karen was furious, humiliated. She replayed the afternoon in her mind. The cops, the chief of staff, the look on my face when the truth shut her down. To her, it wasn't embarrassment. It was betrayal of her authority. Karen, whispering, "He made me look stupid. In front of the police, in our neighborhood. We can't let tomorrow happen." They hatched a plan to file emergency HOA safety violations and lock down the street before the governor's arrival. They'd use a fake security threat excuse to stop the event altogether. As she sipped her tea, her eyes gleamed. "Karen, he can't show off that car. If the whole neighborhood is shut down." She picked up her phone and dialed someone labeled Code Enforcement Contact, Special. Morning light streamed through my window. But it wasn't the sun that woke me. It was the sound of tape ripping against my garage door. I stepped outside and found a bright red notice plastered on the front. "Construction halt order. Unauthorized activity under investigation." My stomach dropped. It bore a city seal, but it looked off. Slightly misprinted, the paper thinner than usual. Then I saw her. Karen, standing across the street, arms folded, phone out, recording my reaction. Karen, smirking. "Looks like your little project is canceled, neighbor." I peeled the notice off, inspecting it carefully. Fake. No QR code, no signature. Just a printed template from the internet. Me, quietly. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" Karen. "Oh, I'll stop. When you leave this neighborhood." I turned away, but not before I saw her make another call. Voice hushed, words sharp. That night, as I checked my garage cameras, I caught her sneaking near my driveway, measuring something. I replayed the footage frame by frame. Karen crouched beside my garage, flashlight in hand, unscrewing something near the power box. My pulse quickened. That wasn't just nosy, it was dangerous. I zoomed in. She was cutting a line. I rushed outside, but by the time I got there, she was gone. The next morning, the garage door refused to open. The lights were dead. She'd cut my power feed, but what she didn't know was that my system was fully backed up. Solar, internal battery, and more importantly, hidden cameras everywhere. The recordings clearly showed her in the act. Me, muttering, "You just made this personal." I sent the footage to a contact at the state police department, someone who owed me a favor. Because if Karen thought this was just a neighborhood spat, she was about to learn the difference between HOA policy and criminal sabotage. That evening, as the chief of staff texted me, "Governor confirmed. ETA 2 p.m. tomorrow," I saw a new car stop near Karen's home. A dark SUV with tinted windows. The SUV idled for several minutes before 2 men stepped out. Suits, sunglasses, earpieces. They weren't police, and they definitely weren't HOA. Karen met them halfway down her driveway, looking nervous but trying to appear important. I recorded everything from my office window. They spoke quietly, gesturing toward my house. Then one of the men handed her a folder. When they left, she hurried back inside, clutching it like it held power. Hours later, as I was cleaning up the garage, I noticed a shadow move across my security feed, someone near my back fence. Karen's motion light flickered next door. I opened the door quietly and stepped out with a flashlight. Nothing, just the wind. until I noticed a small envelope lying near my gate, sealed, unmarked. Inside was a typed note. You might want to cancel your event. Some of your neighbors aren't as friendly as they seem. I looked up just in time to see Karen's blind snap shut, as if she'd been watching me read it. The next day felt heavier than air. The street was lined with parked cars, curious neighbors, and of course, Karen, in full fake smile mode, pretending to welcome the guests she tried to sabotage. Cameras from local news outlets rolled in. The chief of staff arrived first, then security detail, and finally, the governor himself. When the motorcade pulled up, even Karen's smugness faltered. The governor stepped out, tall, calm, with that old-school authority that made the air shift. Governor, smiling, heard we have a classic beauty to unveil today. Me, yes, sir. Right this way. The crowd gathered near the driveway. Karen lingered at the edge, pretending to smile, but trembling slightly. The garage opened slowly, lights flickering back to life. The Lincoln Continental gleamed beneath them, restored to perfection. The governor ran his hand over the polished chrome. You've done remarkable work, son. I can see why they wanted to stop this. Karen's face froze. They wanted to stop this? The governor knew what she'd done? A hush fell. The governor looked directly across the crowd, at Karen. Governor, it's funny, you know. I was briefed about someone trying to interfere with this event. Someone who filed false complaints, even faked official notices. Karen's face drained of color. I was just trying to protect the community, she stammered. Governor, sternly. Ma'am, the community doesn't need protection from honesty, the crowd murmured. Cameras rolled. The chief of staff stepped forward, holding a tablet, playing the security footage I'd provided. Karen sneaking around my property, cutting wires, taping fake notices. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. The HOA members behind her slowly stepped back, distancing themselves as if she were radioactive. Governor, quietly. You called the police on a man restoring hope for veterans. You should have called your conscience instead. Karen's eyes darted, trembling between fear and humiliation. The governor turned back to me. Let's get this car where it belongs and leave small-minded people behind. Karen turned to run home, just as two real city code officers stepped forward with a warrant in hand. Karen froze mid-step as the two city code officers blocked her path. Their expressions were grim, professional, not performative. Officer, ma'am, we have a warrant to inspect your property. Multiple complaints and evidence of code violations, including tampering with municipal utilities. The words hit her like a hammer. The entire neighborhood, now gathered to see the governor's event, turned in unison. Phones came up. Cameras clicked. Karen, stammering, This is harassment. I'm the HOA president. Officer, flatly, not anymore. The HOA bylaws list sabotage and falsifying documents as grounds for immediate suspension. Her clipboard, the symbol of her power, slipped from her trembling hand and hit the pavement. The governor didn't say a word. He just watched, his expression unreadable. One of the officers lifted a photo from the folder, an image of Karen meeting the men from the black SUV. You're going to want to explain this, he said. Karen's composure cracked completely. Karen, whispering. That wasn't what it looked like. I thought they were with the city. Officer, funny, because those men you met, they're under investigation for extortion and impersonating government officials. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The governor's security team exchanged tense glances. I felt my stomach tighten. This was bigger than Karen's ego. Me, you mean, she hired fake inspectors? Officer, nodding. Worse, she paid them. Karen's jaw fell open. No, I just wanted the event canceled. I didn't know they were criminals. The chief of staff stepped closer, his tone like ice. Ignorance doesn't erase responsibility, Mrs. Davenport. The governor turned to his aide. Make sure the AG's office gets this footage. Karen tried to plead her case, but from the corner of my eye, I saw one of the dark SUVs returning down the street. Engines rumbled. The black SUV rolled in slow, deliberate, like a wolf circling its prey. The governor's security detail immediately went into motion, hands to earpieces, agents fanning out. Karen panicked. Karen screaming, "I didn't call them! I swear!" The SUV stopped. The back door opened. A tall man in a gray suit stepped out. No expression, no name tag. He looked at Karen, then at me. Gray suit. "You shouldn't have involved law enforcement." The governor's head turned sharply. His bodyguards closed ranks around him. "Governor, who are you with?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat. Tension snapped like wire. "Hands where I can see them!" One of the agents barked. The man froze, smirked, and pulled out an envelope. Gray suit. "This was meant for you." He dropped it at Karen's feet, got back in the SUV, and drove off. The envelope had only one word written on it: payback. A murmur spread as the governor's security team collected the envelope and scanned it for threats. Inside, a USB drive and a printed message. "Every neighborhood has its secrets. You just uncovered one." The chief of staff plugged the drive into a secured tablet. Static, then video, a feed from a hidden camera showing HOA meetings, including Karen, 2 board members, and a man in the same gray suit. They were discussing kickbacks, illegal property fines, and even a plan to use fake city enforcement to bully homeowners into compliance. Karen's face went pale as the footage rolled. "Karen, I didn't know he was recording." The governor folded his arms. "So it's not just about you harassing one neighbor. It's systemic." Karen fell to her knees, muttering, "He said he'd make us rich." The governor looked at me, his voice low. "You're not just dealing with a petty HOA anymore. You're standing in the middle of a criminal racket." The governor's visit officially turned into a criminal investigation. State troopers cordoned off the cul-de-sac. News crews who'd come for the charity reveal were now filming a full-scale scandal. Karen was escorted to the curb, face buried in her hands, as the chief of staff read her rights. She wasn't being arrested, yet, but she was being detained for questioning, neighbors whispered. Some glared. Some filmed. A few surprisingly defended her, claiming the HOA just got too strict. I watched, torn between anger and pity. For all her venom, she looked small now, fragile, governor, to me. "You did good by not retaliating." "Let the law handle it," I nodded. But deep down, I felt something wasn't finished. That night, I found a note taped to my garage door, written in shaky handwriting. "They'll come for you next." Sleep didn't come easy. I replayed every moment. The SUV, the recordings, Karen's collapse, trying to make sense of who they were. Then my phone buzzed. A restricted number. I answered. Silence. Then a distorted voice. "You should have left the garage door closed." The line went dead. Seconds later, my security feed glitched, screens flickering to static. When they came back online, one of the cameras was pointed at me from the outside. Someone had moved it. I rushed to the garage, heart pounding. The air smelled faintly of burnt wires. The security hub was fried, deliberate tampering. Me breathing hard. This isn't just HOA revenge anymore. In the distance, thunder rolled, and red taillights faded into the rain. I checked the remaining feed and saw a dark figure standing across the street, watching my house, holding Karen's clipboard. Rain streaked the windows as I watched the dark figure from my porch. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, holding Karen's clipboard like a threat. When I finally stepped outside, headlights flared from the corner and the figure vanished into the night. I rushed to where he stood. The clipboard was left behind. On the first page, a list of addresses in our neighborhood. Every one of them had been fined, harassed, or falsely cited by Karen's inspector team. At the bottom of the page, scrawled in red ink, "Next target, you." Before I could react, my phone buzzed again, this time from the governor's security office. "Agent, we just traced a data breach from your address. Stay inside. We're en route." A faint noise echoed from the garage, the unmistakable click of the side door unlocking from the inside. I grabbed my flashlight and moved toward the garage. The smell of ozone and burnt metal was stronger now. When I pushed open the door, the lights flickered. And then I saw it. The security hub's internal drive was gone. Someone had ripped it out cleanly, then movement in the shadows. A figure in a hood darted toward the back door. I lunged, barely catching the hem of his jacket. Me. Who are you? He slammed me backward against the workbench, knocking over a tray of tools. The hood fell back. It wasn't a man. It was Karen. Her face was streaked with rain and tears. Karen, hoarse whisper. You don't understand. They're watching both of us. I had to destroy the evidence. Me. You tried to destroy proof that could save you. Karen. No, proof that could get us killed. A black SUV rolled past outside. Slow, deliberate, headlights sweeping across her terrified face. Karen dropped to her knees, trembling. Karen. They weren't just fake inspectors. They were laundering HOA funds, and I signed the checks. She explained everything. The kickbacks, the forged city permits, the pressure from corporate sponsors tied to a development firm. She thought she was enforcing HOA policy, but she was being used as a front. Karen. They threatened my husband when I tried to back out. He left town last month. Lightning flashed. The governor's security SUVs pulled up moments later. Agents flooded the driveway. Karen didn't resist. Agent, we've got her, sir, and she's willing to talk. As they led her away, she turned back to me and whispered, check the shed. Under the floorboards. The next morning, I went to the shed, wary, heart still heavy. Rainwater glistened on the tools and Karen's muddy footprints still marked the floor. I pried up a warped floorboard. Underneath was a small metal box, sealed tight with tape. Inside, 2 flash drives, a folded map, and an HOA ledger. When I opened one drive, I froze. Footage, dozens of hours from other neighborhoods, all with the same fake inspection teams. Each one labeled with property IDs, fines, and signatures from the same corporate developer. It wasn't just my HOA, it was an organized statewide fraud network. The final folder on the drive was labeled Governor Visit Plan.mp4. The video played, grainy but clear. The same gray-suited man who'd delivered the payback envelope was speaking to someone off camera. Gray suit. Once the governor's event collapses, we liquidate. Media scandal, property values plummet, and we buy everything cheap. The suspicious activity reports. The tampering. The chaos. It was all designed to make the governor look incompetent. Karen was just a pawn. I immediately called the chief of staff. Within an hour, state agents were at my house collecting evidence. Agent, this blows the whole thing open. You just exposed a multi-million-dollar property scam. One agent looked out the window and muttered, We've got company. Down the street, the black SUVs were back. The air thickened with tension. Governor's agents blocked the driveway while the SUVs rolled to a halt. From the first vehicle stepped the gray-suited man, hands raised mockingly. Gray suit, let's not make this ugly. I just came for what's mine. Agent, you mean the evidence you planted? He smirked. No, the one who took it from me. Everyone turned toward Karen, who had just arrived in a police cruiser. She stepped out defiant. Karen, you're not getting away with this again. Gray suit, you think these men take orders from you anymore? He whistled, and more men emerged from the SUVs, armed, silent, disciplined. One of the agents hissed, Get the governor out of here, now! Sirens wailed in the distance as the standoff escalated. Rain poured harder, lightning slicing across the sky. Karen stepped forward, shouting, I have everything backed up! Even if I die, they'll know. The gray-suited man's smirk vanished. He lunged toward her. But before he reached her, the governor's convoy smashed through the intersection, lights blinding. An armored SUV sideswiped the attacker's vehicle, spinning it into a lamppost. Agents swarmed, pinning the men down as Karen screamed. The gray-suited man tried to run, but I tackled him myself. He hit the pavement hard. Me. You picked the wrong neighborhood. The man spat blood, sneered, and whispered, You still don't know who I work for. By dawn, the operation was over. Dozens of arrests, seized bank accounts, every HOA linked to the scheme under investigation. The governor stood in my driveway, exhausted but proud. Governor, you stopped something that's been bleeding this state for years. Karen stood a few feet away, no longer the tyrant neighbor, just a woman facing consequences. Karen, quietly, I never wanted this to happen. I thought I was doing my job. Governor, you'll have a chance to make it right. Testify. She nodded, tears mixing with the rain. The governor turned to me. You ever thought about running for the HOA board? Weeks later, the neighborhood was quiet again. No black SUVs, no fake fines, no hidden agendas. Karen's case went public. Her testimony dismantled the entire criminal network. The governor passed a new homeowner protection bill in her name. At the next HOA meeting, I sat at the head of the table, newly elected president. When I opened the session, I looked straight into the camera live streaming the event. Me. This time, the HOA works for the homeowners, not against them. The audience applauded. As I closed my laptop, the security feed caught one last flicker of movement outside, a gray suit disappearing around the corner. Justice doesn't erase the past, but it keeps the lights on for those still watching.